Hello and welcome to News Express, exclusively brought to you by Business AM, Nigeria's fastest growing financial and business newspaper. I am Chukunonsu Modi. Let's take a look at the stories hitting the front page this week. Now the big story, expectations mixed as Omicron COVID-19 variant shakes markets. Sub-headlines, global financial markets, economies react as Nigeria, others record index cases of Omicron. Another sub-headline, experts say Nigeria's 2021 GDP growth may get hampered. Economic recovery to be dampened if... I wonder what that if is. Now, second headline, IMF says global financial safety net to remain until pandemic ends. With sub-headline, as World Reserve Holdings reaches $14 trillion, another headline, layers of safety net rose tenfold to $4 trillion. Now, looking at other headlines, we have on the Finance and Investment Corner, profit recovery helps SSA coys. Now another one, we're looking at company and business and talking about NASIMA 6 PHCCIMA rejig. Now under commodities and agriculture, we see agribusiness for youth jobs as a story to look out for. Then technology and innovation, MTN Airtel Mafab for Nigeria 5G. Then of course visionary voices, we have building a better global health framework, an insightful story to look out for. Executive knowledge series, a different kind of family firm hiding in plain sight. Then on the transport business, you see Creta gets the accolade. Now let's bring in Philip Isakpa to help us make sense of the headlines. Good morning, Philip.
Good morning, Esther. Good to be back again.
Yeah, good to have you here. Now, looking at the first headline, it says expectations mixed as Omicron COVID-19 variant shakes markets. Now, economic and market analysts have offered mixed expectations on the direction of global and domestic economies in the wake of the emergence of this latest variant of COVID-19, that's Omicron. Now, this has caused concerns to sweep the financial markets for a while last week, especially what was considered both knee-jerk and regional profiling reactions by some European countries with the whole ban and then putting most African countries on blacklist because, the Omicron variant was discovered in South Africa. Now, there has been so much worrying and concern that's shaking the economy. Are these concerns justifiable? We don't have a clear picture yet, and with what we've been hearing, the virus hasn't been seen as a deadly one. So why this whole worry, and how will these concerns and worries affect the global outlook of the economy?
Now, Esther, you will take your mind back to 2019, actually, when the virus actually broke in China, and then everybody kept quiet about it. Everybody else in the world thought, it's a Chinese problem. It will remain in China and will not come to us. Whether you are in North America or you are in Europe, everybody just kept some lackadaisical approach to it. And when 2020 came and the whole thing became something of a worldwide concern,
yes.
As we saw death rates rising on a daily basis in America, in Europe, Italy, the UK, Spain, and Portugal, and France, and the rest of them. Apparently, what has happened this time is that there have been a knee-jerk reaction in the sense that Europe, in particular, some countries in Europe, and also Canada, that immediately put a travel ban on some countries in some countries in Southern Africa, including South Africa, were reacting based on perhaps some great fear of what happened last time.
Yes.
They had to deal with a lot of health challenges. When the virus broke. After leaving China and spreading across the world. So perhaps there's concern concern internally, in terms of how their people, the people of those countries, citizens of those countries, whether you're talking about the United Kingdom or you're talking about Canada or the other countries that have taken similar action. So it's about the threat, it's not just threat to human lives, but also the threat to economic well-being.
Yes.
Countries are just beginning to recover. They are still in recovery mode, from the impact of 2020, and then this suddenly breaks out, and everybody now goes to the precautionary mode. Take caution. Let's make sure that what happened in 2020 doesn't happen again. But in doing that, they have. You look at the political side of it, or the what we call a regional profiling side of it. Many have said they've been hasty in doing that. But let's look at it economically. There is need to be cautious about what's going on. Nigeria particularly suffered quite a lot from what happened in 2020.
Yes, we did.
We had crude oil. We had crude oil. Floating around in Europe, and nobody wanted to buy.
Yeah.
We have had this what we call the oil market dropping. From 80-85. Once this Omicron was identified, oil markets began to react, and then you had from 85 to 80, so $80-85 per barrel. You now had down to 40 or so. That's a big impact. Especially for an economy like Nigeria that is quite dependent on crude oil, exports for foreign exchange earnings. So that's the way it's playing out. Markets reacted, of course, because of what happened in 2020. That reaction is normal, for analysts to be cautious, or for market players to be cautious, for investors to be cautious, because they don't know what this might be.
Yes.
And again, the response or the reaction is based on what exactly is this time? Asking the question, what is this time? Is it going to be like what came out from China, the Wuhan episode, and how it impacted on the economies of the world globally? So caution is always what investors normally would take to once something like this begin to happen. But the reaction from countries across some countries in Europe and Canada, haven't been justified when you look at the diseases itself, or the particular variant that has broken out. It didn't exactly come from South Africa. It's just that South Africans discovered it, because of their expertise, their scientific expertise in dealing with issues like this. So the market has reacted, but it's still a wait and see situation.
Yes.
Let us watch this out and see what happens in the next 2 weeks. Analysts start to wonder. One analyst told us that the world was looking forward to the COVID episode itself coming to an end.
Yes.
And then suddenly this comes upon them. This comes out, and then they talked about how infectious, it is, how quickly it can spread and how widespread it can be. You can look at it in terms of the medical or the health concern, whether it kills or whether it hospitalizes people. That would be a different matter entirely, but you can see how impactful it can be if things have to slow down and then economies have to be shut down, like it happened in 2020.
Okay, yes, well said. True. There's no harm in having worries or concerns, especially what we went through last year. Okay, speaking of Nigeria, experts have said that Nigeria's 2021 GDP growth may get hampered by this new emerging variant, as well as also giving room for the decelerating headline inflation to take a reversal and also make a northward movement while real prices of consumer commodities spiral. Now, what do you say to this, Mr. Philip?
Again, following the trend of what happened in 2020, Nigeria depends on crude oil exports a lot,
Yes.
and the entire global supply chain situation, that hasn't exactly been steadied after the crisis of 2020. It's what analysts have been looking at and beginning to see how that could have an impact on the Nigerian economy. I think it's about whether what Omicron will stand for. If it becomes something particularly heavy, they think Nigeria would likely suffer from it, because already you've had the what's going on in terms of travel bans, that the UK has placed on Nigeria, although we don't know how strongly that will affect the economy, but it will have some impact, on how we and on what happens generally, But they're looking at it overall and saying that if this were to hit a higher note, then you're likely to have a greater impact, we have seen this happen before in 2020. How once a particular aspect of the economy is impacted in a strong way, then you have GDP numbers, likely to be affected.
Yes.
Then you have inflation, which is still double digits as we speak. And the fact that there is concern going into the Yuletide season, where prices begin to go up and things like many other things like that. So that's the concern they're having. If things don't go very well, then you're likely to have an impact on GDP, likely to have an impact on inflation, and those impacts are not likely to be positive. They're going to be negative, and this is what analysts are saying at the time we filed the report.
Okay, all right. Like you said, it's good to prepare. I mean, the world cannot forget in a hurry how devastating the first COVID-19 variant was. So now, other countries are putting in place, with all this travel and flight bans, they're putting in place ways to at least curtail the impact on the economy. So what are some measures we can take here that can help us curtail the impact? It will affect the economy, but how can we cushion that effect?
Well, we've just heard from the Minister of Health who spoke over the weekend, suggesting that Nigeria is not quick to place a ban, just like every other, some other countries have done. That we are not going to follow that route.
Okay.
But that's because we are import dependent.
Yes, very true.
There isn't much. It's when you are giving a lot to the world. If there's quite a lot you are giving to the world, that you become you make a significant impact. If you say no, if you begin to place some travel bans,
yes,
here and there, but. It's also because the confidence is because the variant itself hasn't been found to be particularly deadly. Hospitalization. I don't think they've even talked about much hospitalization. In South Africa, where the scientists who discovered or who found this, or noticed this and went further to deeper, said there weren't hospitalization, So Nigeria is confident because of what is coming out from the science community in South Africa and what they have, the local scientists themselves have done in terms of looking at what this this variant really means, But so you cannot really place a ban, but you can advocate a vaccine, that push for to get more vaccines and then encourage more Nigerians to take up the vaccine, and then make sure that there's a great deal of advocacy, in terms of and then communication in terms of the precautionary measures that need to be taken by citizens, to prevent this from spreading.
Yes.
Of course, we have Nigeria has announced one or two cases of
Omicron,
the variant,
yes,
in the country, but it's how to prevent that from causing a blowout, that makes the economy unworkable, that there should be a concern. The thing really is that you will find that the lockdown did have a great deal of impact last year,
yes,
and we've had different waves. I think we're talking about the third or fourth wave in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
The third wave did not have much of an impact, so there was this confidence to carry on, and there could be that confidence to say, this isn't really as serious as people have always presented it, but there's always a need to be cautious and
yes,
then to ensure that everything is working according to the laid down protocols that have been established, for safety, and for the economy to keep moving well. Supply chain, disruption, very serious matter, as far as the economy is concerned, and the economy is just beginning to crawl back. We have seen GDP growth in the third quarter, which was quite encouraging. We have seen inflation hasn't been quite comfortable. Not been at a comfortable level, but it's not growing so rapidly. It was slowing at some point and then began to rise again. But not rising so rapidly. Still double digits and still a problematic number. But we're hoping that the fiscal and the monetary authorities, will come together and think very, very clearly in terms of their approach to dealing with this the issue that might arise from should there be any anyway, from the Omicron variant that people are worried about.
Hopefully this variant is not deadly. I mean, nobody wants to enter the new year with so much fear and worry. Now, looking at the second headline, IMF says global financial safety net to remain until pandemic ends. Now, the International Monetary Fund has said that continued use of the global financial safety net will need to be kept in place until the global pandemic crisis comes to an end. And this is as the total stock of international reserve holdings has more than doubled to about $14 trillion at the end of 2020 since the global financial crisis, while other layers of the safety net rose tenfold to about $4 trillion. So please shed more light on what this global financial safety net is. How much has it expanded over the years?
Now, what's going on here, Esther, is that when the crisis broke, there are people who have spoken about how the world was quickly able to mobilize itself, in terms of creating this safety net.
Yes.
At the last COP, the COP26 summit in Glasgow, about the response to that crisis not being as quick as the world was able to respond, to the virus crisis that became global last year. So there has been a safety net. We've seen world reserve holdings reaching 14 trillion, as a result of some things that have been put in place. The safety net itself rose tenfold to $4 trillion.
Yeah.
There have been safety nets in terms of the special drawing rights that the IMF also put in place, to about $650 billion. You have different safety nets that have been put in place by the African Development Bank and then countries individually putting up a great amount of money to cushion the effect of the pandemic, especially when it became devastating last year. All economies have come together, individually and collectively, whether you're talking about the World Bank or you're talking about the IMF and then regional development finance institutions, the Asian Development Bank, the African Development Bank, the Afro-Exim Bank, and the rest of them. In Nigeria, the central bank has been pushing, seriously, making serious interventions, in terms of providing this safety net that they're talking about, So, but they said, I think what IMF is saying is that this isn't particularly over yet, that we cannot begin to pull back on this safety net. We still need to continue to maintain the safety net because the global economy or an individual economies aren't out of the woods yet, that the caution, because the safety nets were put in place as cautionary measures,
yes.
To safeguard the impact of the crisis. And they are saying that this needs to continue. It's not. We have not seen the end of this yet, and I mean, it's not far from the truth because we've talked about. I mean, we're already talking about a new variant. That is already causing some panic. If that is happening, then you see why the IMF is maintaining that the safety nets will need to stay in place or be kept in place. For the whole pandemic crisis to be completely resolved. Until that is done, then there's no need to pull back on safety nets. So you're going to see. We're hoping that the IMF itself will be in the forefront of being with, as well as with the World Bank. Begin to create more. Even though we talk about the tenfold rise in safety net to $4 trillion. They will need to punch their numbers again to see whether where there are other areas to begin to increase what they need to provide to global economies and different parts of the world. In Nigeria, we expect that there will be some sitting down, to clearly look at how or whatever this will mean for Nigeria in terms of creating more safety net opportunities, in different areas of the economy, for growth and for stabilization. Largely, it's about stabilizing the world economy. And then stabilizing national economies, and keeping them in balance, to be able to wade through the crisis as it is at the moment. The impact of this virus, was so huge, that the disruption that it caused on the world, in different parts of different economies, have been really great. In Africa, it took quite a toll. In Nigeria, the recovery isn't particularly smooth and hasn't really shown up in the numbers in terms of what you see on the streets. So quite a lot of things still need to be done. But the World Bank, the IMF is saying that the safety nets that have been put in place, there won't be a pullback or shouldn't be a pullback, from those safety nets until the crisis come to a full and final stop.
Okay, there shouldn't be a pullback. Honestly, I am looking forward to when this crisis ends, because it feels like when we move forward, something else pops up and we are almost back at zero.
There are some people who think that, at some point you're just going to have what's it called, the COVID virus become a yearly thing.
Okay.
But it is how the world is able to nip it in the bud in terms of, because you have the flu virus in Europe and America and in some other places, that every year you have new some people take vaccines, or they take so they take that every year, to prevent to guard against the flu virus. But so people they are taught that this might be the case, but it's how to control it to such a level, where it becomes take a vaccine every year, and then you are well and good. until we get to that point, it's still not quite clear for everybody.
Okay, hopefully we get to that point really soon. Okay, thank you, Mr. Philip. We'll see how the stories develop this week. Right, that was Philip Isakwa, the publisher, Business AM, Nigeria's fastest growing financial and business newspaper. That's all for now. Stay tuned for more.